Useless, get out of my sight. Colonel Richard Vance bellowed in the Fort Liberty briefing room, his voice sharp as a blade slicing through the stifling air. Sarah Kane, the scrawny clerk, stood frozen, her oversized uniform swallowing her frame, hands trembling as she clutched a stack of reports. 30 Delta Force soldiers smirked, their eyes pegging her as a burden. Suddenly, the door burst open, 6 masked figures in black, rifles raised high. Their leader, with a drawn-out Texas accent, demanded a female hostage. Vance shoved Sarah forward. Her glasses flew to the floor. Take her. She's disposable. The cold barrel pressed against her temple. But why did her trembling hands suddenly steady? The old Ford Focus rattled into Fort Liberty, North Carolina, under June's blistering Sunday. Its engine groaned, gray smoke puffing from the exhaust, as if the car itself was exhausted. Sarah Kane stepped out, her auburn hair messily tied up, glasses slipping down her nose, a worn canvas bag in hand. Her oversized admin uniform made her look like a child in an adult's clothes. The gate guard glanced at her papers, muttering, "Another DC desk jockey," and waved her through, eyes glued to his phone. Sarah bowed her head, her steps hesitant, shoulders hunched as if afraid to trip. No one noticed, exactly as she intended. Fort Liberty, the heart of Delta Force, was a perfect war machine. Soldiers jogged past, muscles taut, eyes icy, ignoring her. Sarah quietly crossed the training yard, where rifle cracks echoed and sweat mixed with dust. She was a ghost among these machines of violence, invisible to warriors forged for battle. But behind her drugstore glasses, her eyes scanned everything. Camera placements, emergency exits, officers' movements. She wasn't Sarah Kane, logistics clerk. She was Captain Elena Voss, callsign Anchor 9, presumed dead in a Yemen ambush 3 years ago. Her mission: expose Colonel Richard Vance, the man behind the weapons smuggling ring that killed her team. On day 2, Captain Michael Torres, head of security, noticed something. In the noisy mess hall, he approached as Sarah fumbled with her tray. "Kane, right?" His voice was low, eyes probing. Sarah flinched, dropping her spoon, applesauce splattering her shoes. "Oh God, I'm sorry, sir," she stammered, kneeling to wipe it, hands shaking. "I'm from Fort Bragg, just organizing files." Torres watched. Her clumsiness was too perfect. Her trembling hands moved with precise, swift wipes. "Careful," he said, suspicion in his tone. "This place isn't for the weak." Sarah nodded, eyes down, but in her mind, she noted, Torres was a threat. That night, in her sparse room, Sarah vanished. The woman emerging from the shadows wasn't the clumsy clerk. 200 push-ups, 300 crunches, each move sharp as a blade. This wasn't training, it was maintenance, keeping a honed sword in a weak sheath. She checked a surveillance device hidden in a pen, tiny as a grain of sand, transmitting via the base's encrypted frequency. The screen flickered, showing Vance's emails. Lists of weapons, shipments marked destroyed, but rerouted to a private Virginia port. Those M4s had killed Ramirez, Cole, and Hawk Larson, her closest friend. 3 years ago she'd carried Hawk through gunfire, his blood soaking her shirt, his voice whispering, "American guns. Why?" She held her breath, fists clenched. This wasn't just a mission. It was a promise. The next morning, Vance summoned her to his office. "Kane, organize these files. By date, not name." He hurled a stack of documents at her, papers scattered like dry leaves. Sarah stooped to pick them up, shoulders hunching further. "Yes, sir," she whispered, voice trembling. But her eyes scanned his desk. A hidden drawer, a burner phone, fingerprints on a safe. Vance was arrogant, careless. He thought her useless, her greatest weapon. In the hallway, Major Derek Holt blocked her path. "Watch it, Mouse," he growled. "This place isn't for dead weight." Sarah nodded, eyes down, but in her mind, she catalogued every word. Holt was Vance's lackey. he'd fall with him. In the mess hall, Sergeant Lisa Harper, a combat medic, handed Sarah a coffee. "Don't let them get to you," she said warmly. Sarah gave a weak smile, noting Harper's kindness. But kindness could be a trap. One slip, and her cover would unravel. As dusk fell over Fort Liberty, Sarah stood by a window, watching Delta soldiers train in close combat. Their moves were powerful but predictable. Not like her, a ghost who'd learned to hide in plain sight. But why did her heart race when she saw a man in the new contractor group? He moved like Hawk. Impossible. Hawk was dead, wasn't he? Dear audience, pause for a moment to hit that subscribe button before diving into the heart of the story, but only if you truly connect with what I'm sharing here. Drop a comment below to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. It's amazing to see people from all over joining us. The morning sun streamed through Colonel Richard Vance's office window, its harsh light highlighting the angry creases on his face. Sarah Kane stood before his desk, clutching reports, shoulders hunched as if bracing for a storm. "Kane, can't you do one simple thing right?" Vance roared, hurling a thick file to the floor. Papers scattered like dead leaves. "Chronological order, not alphabetical, you idiot." Sarah knelt to gather them, glasses sliding down her nose, voice trembling. "Sorry, sir, I'll fix it." But behind the lenses, her eyes noted everything. A burner phone in the drawer, a safe hidden behind a metal display. Vance's arrogance was his fatal flaw. Fort Liberty thrummed with the rhythm of war. Rifle cracks from the training yard echoed, blending with the mocking laughter of Delta soldiers in the mess hall. Sarah sat alone in a corner, chewing a dry sandwich, ears catching every word. $10 she can't lift a rucksack. A young soldier named Carter sneered, jutting his chin at her. 20, she'll cry first. Another added, laughing. Sarah kept her eyes down, letting them build a wall between her and Elena Voss, Anchor 9. Each taunt was a brick, reinforcing her cover, a useless clerk, a burden no one heeded. The previous night, in a secure briefing room, she'd overheard Vance and Major Derek Holt discussing a transfer of 250 M4 rifles to a private militia in Texas. "They're paying double market price," Vance whispered, voice thick with greed. "The records will show them destroyed." Holt nodded, but his eyes flicked to the door where Sarah pretended to sort files. She bowed lower, hands trembling, but her mind etched every word. Those rifles, she knew them too well. 3 years ago, in Yemen, they'd torn through her team. Ramirez died instantly, a bullet through his chest. Cole fell, calling his wife's name before fading. And Hawk Larson, her closest friend, bled out in her arms, whispering, "American guns." Why? Sarah was assigned to inventory the weapons depot, a task beyond a clerk's clearance. Vance wanted a scapegoat for when the accident happened. In the depot's dim light, rows of M4S and Barrett sniper rifles stood like silent graves. In a restricted corner, 250 rifles bore red tags. Destroyed. Operation Firestorm. Sarah's hands trembled, not from fear, but from memory. She touched a serial number, Yemen flooding back like a blade. Hawk had fallen, eyes wide with betrayal. Before going still, she photographed the fake tags, sending them via a device hidden in her watch. Each piece of evidence was a step toward justice. At noon, the mess hall buzzed with chaos. Carter stood on a chair, voice booming. "Who bets the clerk can't do one pull-up?" Laughter erupted. Sarah bit into her sandwich, eyes down, letting the testosterone flare. Major Holt strode over, sitting across without asking. "Kane, know what you are?" He leaned close, breath reeking of tobacco. "A liability. If the enemy breaches, we're stuck protecting you instead of fighting." Sarah nodded meekly. "Yes, sir." But, in her mind, she smirked coldly. If the enemy breached, she'd drop them before Holt could draw his weapon. Sergeant Lisa Harper, the combat medic, was a rare light. She sat beside Sarah, sliding a coffee across the table. "Don't let them hurt you," Harper said gently. "This place is tough, but not everyone's awful." Sarah smiled faintly, noting Harper's kindness but refusing to trust. Yemen taught her that kindness could hide a knife. She sipped the coffee, eyes scanning the room, catching Torres watching from afar. His gaze was sharp, like a hunter tracking prey. He suspected her. But why did his look feel familiar, like a memory from Yemen? All right, dear audience, if you're hooked on this story, drop a comment with the number 1 or "I'm still here to keep listening." Night fell over Fort Liberty, fluorescent lights flickering on the training yard where Delta soldiers moved like ghosts. Sarah Kane stood by the archive room window, pretending to inventory files, but her eyes locked on the new contractor group. 6 men in civilian jackets moved among armored vehicles in the lot. Their leader, called Caleb, walked with deadly precision, each step measured, shoulders slightly tilted, like a trained warrior. Sarah's heart pounded. She'd seen that walk in Yemen's deserts, beside Hawk Larson, but Hawk was dead. She'd carried his body 2 miles through gunfire, hadn't she? Sarah retreated into the shadows, hand brushing the encrypted device in her watch. She'd intercepted Caleb's comms, military-grade encryption, not typical for militias. They discussed a package for tonight's meeting. 250 M4S Vance planned to sell. She planted a micro camera in the depot's corner, capturing Caleb inspecting rifles, his hand gliding over serial numbers with unsettling familiarity. The destroyed tags were fake, the ink still fresh. Sarah sent the data through a secure channel, her heart racing as Yemen resurfaced. Gunfire. Hawk's blood soaking her shirt. His final question. American guns? Why? That morning, Vance summoned her to his office. "Kane, inventory the depot. Don't screw it up," he barked, eyes flashing contempt. Sarah nodded, shoulders hunched, but her mind was clear. Vance was pushing her into the depot to take the fall when the rifles vanished. His arrogance blinded him. In the depot's dim light, rows of M4S gleamed, each a reminder of her team: Ramirez, Cole, Hawk. She photographed fake tags, hands trembling, not from fear, but from memory. Hawk collapsing, eyes wide, as if seeing betrayal before death. At the training yard, Sarah watched Caleb's group from a distance. They moved like special forces, not militia. She noticed a detail. Caleb wore a silver ring etched with a hawk identical to one Hawk joked he'd give his sister. Her heart clenched. Impossible. She'd seen him die, but doubt gnawed, a dull blade in her mind. She needed proof. In the archive room, she hacked the security system, reviewing footage of Caleb's group. One camera caught his face as he removed his cap, a faint scar on his left cheek. Hawk had that scar, from an Iraq explosion. She held her breath. Was it him? Captain Michael Torres appeared behind her. "Kane, why are you here so late?" His voice was icy, eyes probing. Sarah flinched, dropping her pen, hands shaking. Checking files, sir," shaking from low meds. She knelt to pick it up, heart pounding. Torres tilted his head, his gaze piercing her cover. "Meds? Or are you looking for something?" He stepped closer, hand resting on his holster. Sarah smiled weakly, backing away. "Just clumsy, sir." Torres stared longer than necessary, then turned away. But she knew. He was hunting the truth. At noon, Sergeant Lisa Harper found Sarah in the mess hall, offering coffee. "You look tired," Harper said warmly. "These guys are brutal, but you're tougher than they think." Sarah nodded, noting Harper's kindness but staying wary. Yemen taught her kindness could mask a blade. She sipped coffee, eyes scanning the yard where Caleb's group checked vehicles. They were prepping for tonight's attack. Per Vance's plan, stage a weapons heist to pocket millions. But if Caleb was Hawk, why was he working for the enemy? She needed to get into tonight's meeting, where everything would erupt. Dusk fell, Fort Liberty glowing in vibrant orange. Sarah stood before a mirror, donning thick glasses, tousling her hair. The useless clerk returned, ready to step into Vance's trap, but in her pocket, a recording device hummed. Every word, every betrayal would be captured. She glanced out the window, seeing Caleb alone, staring her way. His eyes, cold yet familiar, sent a shiver through her. If Hawk was alive, what had he become? The Fort Liberty briefing room hummed under fluorescent lights, Delta soldiers' laughter drowning out the air conditioner's drone. Sarah Kane, dwarfed by her oversized uniform, moved among tables, hands trembling with a coffee tray. $10 she spills it, Carter whispered, his laugh echoing. Sarah kept her eyes down, setting cups down, letting their contempt wash over her. But her ears caught every snippet. 30 elite warriors. Unaware tonight was Colonel Richard Vance's staged play. He stood at the podium, voice steady. Special equipment transfer. Minimal security. No incidents. A smooth lie. Sarah knew the truth. Through the window, she saw Caleb's group, 6 figures in civilian gear, moving near the building, earlier than planned. The attack was set for 19, but the clock read 18:30. She calculated fast. Vance had accelerated the timeline, or Caleb was acting independently. Either way, she had to adapt. Captain Michael Torres sat at the room's end, eyes locked on her, hand near his holster. He sensed something off, like a hunter smelling blood. Sarah needed a distraction. She deliberately tripped, the coffee tray crashing, cups shattered, hot liquid splashing. "Oh God," she cried, kneeling, hands shaking as she gathered shards. The room roared with laughter. "Useless," Major Derek Holt bellowed, face flushed. "What can you do besides screw up?" Sarah mumbled apologies, but her eyes flicked to the window. Caleb's group was in position, rifles raised. The distraction worked. Torres looked at her, not the door. But Vance, face purple, stormed forward, pointing. "Kane, get out before I drag you!" Before he finished, the door burst open. 6 masked men charged in, M4 rifles aimed. Caleb, his Texas drawl booming, shouted, "Hands up! We need a female hostage now!" The room froze. 30 unarmed Delta soldiers looked to Vance for orders. He played shocked perfectly, raising his hands. "This is a U.S. base. Who are you?" But his eyes flicked to Sarah, calculating. He grabbed her collar, shoving her toward Caleb. "Take her. She's worthless." Sarah stumbled, glasses flying, shattering under Caleb's boot. She crumpled, hands clutching her head, voice trembling. "Please. I'm just a clerk. I don't know anything." But in her blurred vision, she saw the silver hawk ring on Caleb's hand. Her heart raced. "Hawk?" Caleb pressed the rifle to her temple, cold as ice. 10 seconds, he declared. "Pray, girl." The room held its breath. Sergeant Lisa Harper, the combat medic, started to rise, eyes blazing. "No." But Holt shoved her down. "Sit. That's an order." Vance retreated to a corner, his panic an act. Sarah knelt, shoulders shaking as if sobbing, but her hands steadied. She felt Caleb's breathing, his slight shoulder tilt, Hawk Larson's exact stance. 3 years ago she'd memorized his every move in training. But why was he alive? Why was he betraying her? 10, Caleb counted. Sarah sobbed, head bowed. 9. Her hands clenched, then relaxed, resting lightly on her thighs. 8. Torres took half a step, hand grazing his empty holster, but Holt stopped him. 7. Harper looked away, unable to watch. 6. Vance leaned against the wall, his plan unraveling as Caleb acted early. 5. Caleb's finger tightened on the trigger. 4. His men tensed, sensing a shift in the air. 3. Sarah's sobbing stopped, her breathing even. 2. She whispered, too soft for anyone but Caleb to hear. "Hawk, you made a mistake." Caleb froze, the rifle dipping slightly. "One? What'd you say?" He leaned closer, and in that moment, Sarah's eyes opened. Cold, sharp, not the useless Clerk's. If Caleb was Hawk, why did he want her dead? Are you still here, dear audience? Take a moment to relax, maybe grab a glass of water, and keep listening to this gripping tale. Drop a comment with the number 1 if you find this story thrilling. Don't forget to hit subscribe. The moment Caleb hesitated, his rifle dipping an inch, time froze in the Fort Liberty briefing room. Sarah Kane, kneeling under the barrel, was no longer the trembling Clerk. In 3 seconds, she erupted. Her right hand seized Caleb's wrist, twisting hard. The rifle clattered to the floor, metal echoing. Second 2, she locked his throat in a precise chokehold, knee pinning his chest, dropping him in 1.5 seconds. Second 3, Sarah No, Elena Voss, Anchor 9 stood, eyes cold as steel. The 6 masked men raised their rifles, but she moved like a ghost. 2 fell to kicks to the jaw, 3 crumpled from nerve strikes. The last dropped with a punch to the temple. 40 seconds. The room was silent. 30 Delta Force soldiers, elite warriors, gaped. Colonel Richard Vance retreated to a corner, face ashen, his charade collapsing. Major Derek Holt gripped his chair, eyes wild. Sergeant Lisa Harper whispered, "My God." Captain Michael Torres stood still, hand off his holster, eyes gleaming as if finding the final puzzle piece. Elena shed her oversized uniform, revealing a tactical vest hugging her toned frame. Scars crisscrossing her arms told tales of Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan. A tattoo on her shoulder, an anchor wrapped in 9 stars, marked Anchor 9. "I'm not Sarah Kane," she said, voice icy, echoing through the room. "I'm Elena Voss. And you, Colonel Vance, sold the weapons that killed my team." She pressed a button on her watch. A hidden speaker played a recording. Vance's voice, low and greedy, discussing with Holt the sale of 250 M4s to a Texas militia. "Destroyed? Just paperwork. Money's what matters." His laugh in the recording stunned the Delta soldiers. Vance opened his mouth, but Elena raised a hand, cutting him off. "Those rifles killed Ramirez, Cole, and Hawk Larson in Yemen." She paused, eyes on Caleb, now kneeling, breathing heavily. She ripped off his mask. The face revealed a faint scar on his left cheek, sharp eyes, conflicted. "Hawk Larson, alive." "Elena!" Hawk rasped, voice hoarse. "You were supposed to die in Yemen." His words stabbed her heart. 3 years ago she'd carried him through gunfire, his blood soaking her, his voice faint. American guns. She'd wept beside his body, vowing revenge. But he hadn't died. He'd betrayed her. "Why, Hawk?" she asked, voice trembling, not from fear but pain. He smirked, eyes cold. "You're too naive, Anchor. This world has no justice, only profit." He admitted working for Vance, faking his death to run the gun smuggling ring. But now he wanted Vance out to take control. Elena turned to Vance, who was edging toward the door. "Not a chance," she said, advancing, each step a drumbeat of fate. She played another recording, Vance ordering the rifles lost to frame an attack. But Hawk had derailed the plan, acting early to steal the shipment. Elena had captured everything: emails, calls, camera footage. She pressed a final button, sending the data to Interpol and the FBI. Sirens wailed outside. Vance roared, "Who are you to ruin me?" Elena locked eyes with him. "I'm the burden you didn't see, Colonel. Now I'm pulling you down." Harper stood, eyes blazing, fists clenched. Torres approached, his gaze now respectful. But Hawk, still kneeling, smirked. "You think this is the end, Elena? I made you. You're my blade, and I'm not done." His words were poison, stirring memories of Yemen training nights, shared laughs, promises of loyalty. Elena turned away, heart heavy. She defeated the enemy, but Hawk, her once cherished friend, was a wound that wouldn't heal. The door burst open, FBI agents stormed in, cuffing Vance and Holt. But Hawk's eyes followed her, promising a bigger fight. If Hawk had manipulated her from the start, what was his real plan? The Fort Liberty briefing room door swung open. FBI vehicle lights sweeping the yard, red and blue pulsing like the base's heartbeat. Black-jacketed agents rushed in, guns raised, handcuffs gleaming. Colonel Richard Vance, face pale, was dragged out by two agents, arms twisted back. Major Derek Holt, growling like a caged beast, was cuffed, his glare burning at Elena Voss. She stood in the room's center, tactical vest tight, her anchor and 9 stars tattoo glowing under the lights. 30 Delta soldiers stared, their contempt now awe. Elena wasn't Sarah Kane. She was Anchor 9, the ghost who survived Yemen. Special Agent in Charge Olivia Grant, tall and lean, stepped in, her sharp eyes scanning the room. "Captain Elena Voss," she said, voice steady. "6 months undercover, enduring humiliation. To dismantle this ring, the FBI and Interpol owe you." Elena nodded, no smile. She pressed her watch. The room's large screen lit up. Evidence displayed. Vance's emails, contracts selling 250 M4S to a Texas militia, recordings of him admitting, "Money trumps loyalty." Hidden camera footage showed Holt inspecting forged rifles, and Caleb Hawk Larson taking payments from a foreign account. The crowd fell silent. Vance shouted, "You staged it all, you snake!" But cuffs tightened on his wrists, dragging him out. Hawk, still kneeling, gave a cold smirk. "You're better than I thought, Elena," he said, voice rough. "But you're just a pawn." Elena knelt, locking eyes with him, heart aching. 3 years ago, in Yemen, they'd shared sleepless nights, silly jokes, vows to die for each other. She'd carried his body through the desert, crying until her throat burned. But he hadn't died. He'd chosen betrayal, working with Vance to profit from their team's blood. "Why, Hawk?" she asked, voice nearly a whisper. He shrugged. "Think I'd die for ideals? I used you to take out Vance. He's small fish." Elena stood, fists clenched. Hawk hadn't just betrayed her, he'd manipulated her, using her Yemen pain to set his trap. She looked at Agent Grant, who nodded. Hawk, alias David Larson, had faked his death, working with an international arms network. Elena's data exposed 38 accomplices from Texas to Ukraine, officers to crime lords. Grant ordered, "Take Larson." Agents cuffed Hawk, but his eyes stayed on Elena, as if knowing something she didn't. "You'll need me, Anchor," he said as they dragged him away. "This game's bigger than you." Sergeant Lisa Harper approached, eyes shining. "You did it," she said, gripping Elena's hand. "I knew you weren't a clerk." Elena gave a faint smile, noting Harper's loyalty. Captain Michael Torres stepped forward, his gaze now respectful. "I suspected you from day one," he said, "but not like this." He offered his hand, and Elena shook it, feeling an ally. But Hawk's words echoed, "This game's bigger than you." She looked out the window, where FBI lights faded. Vance and Holt would rot in prison, but Hawk knew something: a larger network, an unseen threat. In the dark, Elena checked her final encrypted device, a message from Interpol via secure channel. Larson's network ties to 12 international groups. He's a middleman, not the head. She frowned. If Hawk was just a middleman, who was behind him? She recalled Yemen, the gunfire, Hawk's final words. "American guns." She'd thought it an accusation. What if it was a clue? Elena turned to Harper and Torres. "We're not done," she said, voice firm. Hawk opened a door. "Now we break it down." They nodded, ready. But as dawn broke over Fort Liberty, Elena felt a chill. If Hawk had manipulated her since Yemen, who was manipulating him? Elena Voss walked, her combat boots soft on the grass, holding 3 silver coins, one for Ramirez, one for Cole, one for Hawk Larson, the man she thought was dead. She stopped at Hawk's headstone, his name carved deep, now a lie. She placed the coin down, whispering, "You chose this path." A cold wind blew, carrying Yemen's memories, gunfire, Hawk's blood soaking her shirt, his haunting words. "American guns." She'd thought it an accusation. Now she knew it was a clue. A young woman, brown hair tied high, appeared behind the headstones. "You're Elena, right?" Her voice trembled. It was Emily, Cole's sister. She handed Elena an old, tattered letter. "Cole left this. Said to give it to you if you came." Elena opened it, Cole's handwriting clear. "If I die, find Hawk. He knows the truth about the guns." Her heart clenched. Cole had suspected Hawk before Yemen, but as she looked up, her phone buzzed. An anonymous number. Hawk's voice, low and sinister. "Found the letter, Anchor. I made you the perfect blade to cut Vance, but the real game starts now." Elena gripped the phone, blood surging. Hawk admitted faking his death, using her pain to eliminate Vance, a rival in the international arms network. "Think I'm the traitor?" He laughed. "I'm just a survivor. Join me, Elena. The real war's coming." He hung up, leaving an anonymous X address posting about American weapons for shadow wars. She checked. The account linked to 12 groups, from South America to Eastern Europe. Hawk wasn't the mastermind, he was a bridge. Who was behind him? Back at Fort Liberty, Elena assembled her new team. Sergeant Lisa Harper, the combat medic, stepped in, eyes fierce with resolve. "I'm with you," Harper said, fists clenched. Captain Michael Torres, gaze sharp, nodded. "I suspected you from day one, but now I get it. Hawk pays." Alexei Volkov, an Interpol agent who'd posed as Caleb, joined via video call. "Larson's tied to 47 gun deals, from Texas to Ukraine," Volkov said. "We need you, Anchor." Elena nodded, feeling the team's weight. New ghosts, ready to vanish to hunt the enemy. They planned in a secure room, dim lights casting shadows on a digital map. Hawk had left traces on X, encrypted posts revealing a location in Norfolk, Virginia, where a new arms shipment was set to move. Elena taught the team Sarah Kane's art. Being underestimated was a weapon. "We don't need glory," she said. "We're invisible burdens, making the enemy dig their own graves." Harper would pose as a logistics medic, Torres as a transport driver, Volkov as a foreign contractor. Elena would return as a clerk, a new version, black-dyed hair, thicker glasses, a different alias. But inside, Anchor 9 burned. That night, she stood alone on the training yard, staring at North Carolina's starry sky. Yemen flashed back, Hawk laughing by a campfire, vowing to have her back. He'd betrayed that vow, but taught her a lesson. Loyalty was a double-edged blade. She checked her concealed pistol, cold as her resolve. Hawk thought he controlled her, but he didn't know. She'd learned to turn pain into power. Her team would hunt him, not for justice, but for the graves in Arlington. But as she opened her phone, a new post from Hawk's X account appeared. "Anchor, you're walking into a trap. Who really runs this game?" The message sent a shiver through her. If Hawk knew her every move, who was pulling the strings? From Yemen's ashes, Elena Voss rose, turning Sarah Kane into an invisible anchor, toppling Vance's empire. But Hawk Larson's betrayal was a wound that wouldn't heal. He'd used their friendship, her pain, to manipulate her into his pawn in the arms trade. Elena's healing lesson was the power of being underestimated. A clumsy clerk, a burden, could bring enemies to their knees. Now, she led her new team Harper, Torres, Volkov into the darkness, where Hawk and his global network wove a larger war. Part 2 will plunge them into a maze of betrayal, each step a trap. Can Elena hunt Hawk, Or will she fall into his net? Leave a comment. How would you face a friend turned traitor? Where are you watching from? And what time is it? Subscribe to catch part 2. And share this story with friends in the U.S. We cherish your company. Let's step into the darkness together.